stop hating on the iPhone 15. There, I said it. Like, over the past week since the Apple event, I've been seeing my social media blow up with people hating on those phones, and although those complaints are warranted, you guys gotta look at it from a different perspective, specifically the perspective of those who just want to upgrade their older iPhone, like iPhone 11 and 12s, compared to those of you who already have the latest iPhone and Android phones. You guys complain about these devices barely having any updates at all, but you guys gotta look at other brands as well. Like, for example, Samsung. From the S22 to S23, they pretty much didn't change the hardware, the camera stayed exactly the same, and all they did was like a minor chip refresh. And same as Google as well, from the Pixel 6 to Pixel 7, where they did a minor like design refresh, but upgraded a chip, and the rest basically stayed the same. And you guys definitely don't hate on Samsung or Google as much as Apple. So, you know, just let me speak my honest opinions about this matter, and I hope you guys listen up, because there's some real valuable information in here. And I just know that you keyboard warriors are already spamming the comments with hate comments, calling me an Apple fanboy. But bro, I like Android and prefer Android way more than iPhones. And, you know, I hate this iPhone 14 so much because it gave me so much trouble over the past few years. But I'm forced to because I'm a content creator, and you know what? I probably will make a video about why us content creators are defaulted to using iPhones, but that's another story for another day. Anyways, the Apple event was indeed a disappointment. So I was actually in a lab at that time, so I couldn't watch it live, but when I was watching it afterwards, I did like triple speed that thing because it was just so boring and full of fillers. Like, there's nothing new with the Apple Watch 9 and Ultra 2 except for that gimmicky gesture. The iPhone 15 Pros and Pro Maxes was kind of disappointing, which I'll get to later in the video, but I definitely think the standout product this year is the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus. Like, there's actually some really solid upgrades from Apple that I think make the product really worth it this year. And you know, this phone is for people who come from older iPhones such as the 11 and 12. So I think those customers will definitely see a magical difference with the upgrades in the iPhone this year. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the 60Hz display, which I know many of you guys are hating and complaining about. So yes, I 100% agree that it's absolutely unacceptable for Apple not to include some sort of high refresh rate display. And I know that they have to differentiate between the Pro and regular models, but you know, at least a 90Hz display would have been nice, because you know, they're kind of robbing people of this new display technology that many people have not experienced. But you know, anyways, Apple was never going to do this with the iPhone 15 in the first place, and people are still gonna buy the phone. I really hope Apple does fix this for the iPhone 16 though, because rumors stated that they actually are going to have a high refresh rate screen on the iPhone 16, which would be fantastic and about time. But anyways, the rest of the display actually got some meaningful changes, which are actually really good for the consumers. So for the iPhone 14, if I remember correctly, they had a 1000 nit display, which is pretty standard amongst all phones now, as it provides pretty good visibility outdoors when there's a lot of sun. But this year, something I did not expect Apple to do at all, they actually doubled the brightness of the panel on the iPhone 15 to 2000 nits now, which is actually huge, because that means when you're outdoors with really harsh sunlighting, you'll be able to see the screen a lot easier. And especially in stores, like when you go and see the iPhone 15, like 14 and 14 Pro in person at the Apple store, there is a big difference between the brightness levels on both the screens. So like, consumers would be like, hey, this screen is brighter on the Pro, I'm gonna get that. But like, now that they're both pretty much even in like screen brightness, when you're in store, it's gonna be a lot hard to tell like which phone is which. And especially since they have the dynamic island, which is carried over from the 14 Pro now, like consumers, they're not gonna miss out on that much compared to the Pro anymore, which I think is really good for the standard models. And speaking about features that are carried from last year's Pro lineup, this year's iPhone 15s are gonna get the A16 chip, which is honestly gonna be great for performance. And it doesn't bother me that Apple is using last year's chip for this year's standard like regular base model iPhones, because honestly, Apple chips perform really well and are pretty efficient, and they're just light years ahead of the competition, such as, you know, Snapdragon or the terrible Samsung Exynos. There's actually some good camera improvements this year as well, which is actually a lot of upgrades that Apple is giving us. But yeah, there's going to be a new 48 megapixel sensor. I don't think it's going to be the same one from last year's Pro, but it's still good regardless, because people are going to see a big improvement in low light capabilities. They're also going to see a lot of improvement in details because I think this year, both the standard and Pro, they now default to a 24 megapixel photo instead of 12 megapixels like the previous years. So that's going to be a big upgrade over there. The iPhone 15s are going to be using the same selfie camera as the Pro. So I actually hope that Apple upgrades the selfies in the Pro lineup next year because honestly, if they're marketing a phone for content creation, both sides of the cameras should be good as well. But yeah, anyways, supposedly Apple has new Smart HDR this year, so hopefully that fixes some of the problems like last year where highlights were completely blown out. And also, there's this new portrait mode that Apple is saying that you can change after the fact. So even if you're in your regular mode and you're taking pictures of people, the phone will automatically take the depth data from the photo so that after the fact, if you change your mind and you want portrait mode, you can actually enable it in the photo settings, which is really, really great. And I think a lot of people are gonna find it handy because sometimes when I'm in a hurry, I forget to take a portrait mode photo, and honestly, just being able to change it after the fact is really helpful. And also, being able to toggle it off after the fact is also helpful because sometimes portrait mode doesn't do a good job and you don't want it instead, so that's really good. And finally, we get to USB-C, which is gonna be such a blessing for everyone because honestly, man, ever since I started using the iPhone as my default phone, it's such a pain in the butt to carry a lightning cable everywhere just for your AirPods and iPhones. So, and especially since all the devices nowadays in 2023 are using USB-C, it's gonna just be a lot easier for people just having to carry one cable for all your devices. And another thing that people are complaining about though is the USB 2 speeds on the USB-C port, which is kind of a bad move from Apple in my opinion, especially since all the other competitors are using USB 3, but it's not that big of a deal in my opinion either, just because, I can't remember the last time I connected my phone to the computer to transfer files. And I don't know, if you have an iPhone and a MacBook, you could just airdrop those files. And normal people, they're not gonna be needing to transfer 200 gigabytes of ProRes footage at a time. So it's not really gonna impact them that much as well. And on the other side for design, I really like the new colors this year actually. So I know the shades are getting lighter and lighter, but I'm all for the pastel colors. I really like pastel light color things, my mouse pad pastel blue over here and my pastel orange wallpaper. So I don't know, I haven't seen them in person yet, so I can't make a decision on whether if I like them or not, but they look really good, and having a matte finish just also feels more premium in my opinion. But yeah, those are the upgrades for the iPhone 15s, and honestly, those are some really, really solid upgrades that are gonna benefit the consumers a lot, especially at no price change. It's basically an iPhone 14 Pro Lite, so consumers are actually getting a lot this year. And honestly, if you're deciding between the 14 Pro and the 15, man, the 14 Pro, they have some serious issues. I don't know, my cell reception is pretty bad, there's tons of bugs, it lags and freezes a lot. Also, not to mention the fact that the battery is absolutely atrocious. And it's not just me either, there's been so many people complaining about the battery problem on the iPhone 14 Pro. I think I'm at 87% battery health right now, and even though I don't use my phone that much, I have to charge it 2-3 times during the day, which is absolutely unacceptable. So, I will wait until the reviews of the battery life come out for the iPhone 15, and if it's good, I would definitely pick the iPhone 15 over the 14 Pro from last year because I think you can just skip the 14 generation completely because it was bad in my opinion. All right, that was a lot of rambling as, I'm just going scriptless, just going off all the honest thoughts in my head. But iPhone 15 Pros. So a lot of people were disappointed in the upgrades from Apple this year. I'm a little bit as well. It was a little bit underwhelming, but after digging through all the information and specs when I was doing my research for this, honestly, there were some pretty good upgrades as well. So first, obviously, the most biggest thing Apple made about the iPhone 15 Pro is the new titanium frame. So it's gonna be a lot more durable, and what I really like is that it made the phone a lot lighter. So I think both the Pro and Pro Max models are actually 20 grams lighter than last year, so it's actually going to be a significant difference. So that's good for our hands because honestly, this 14 Pro feels dense in the hand, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, they also have this new action button on the side, which can be used to customize different actions. Honestly, I'm probably just going to keep it as my camera toggle just because I always keep my phone on silent anyway, so the action button is not very useful for me anyways. And finally, of course, the USB-C port. So they put a USB 3 port capable of 10 gigabits per second, which is gonna be so good because, you know, when I got the 14 Pro and I wanted to shoot ProRes footage, it was such a pain just airdropping those files because they took forever. So now being able to quickly transfer files from my iPhone directly to my laptop is gonna be such a good deal. And also, now it actually supports external recording directly to an SSD. So I can just plug some regular like SSD into my iPhone, and being able to record directly into that just honestly takes away one more step. And now, like, I can just have like as big of a drive as I want, and I'll never have to worry about running out of storage to shoot videos in. And apparently, this port also supports like DisplayPort, so hopefully that means you can connect it to a monitor and do some stuff with it. Honestly, it'll be pretty interesting to see like what capabilities Apple have unlocked using that port, because you know, with the new A17 Pro chip, apparently that has ray tracing now, and it can support like console quality graphics. So like if you can just like plug this into like a monitor and start doing like console games and you hook it up with like a console controller, that would be actually really cool. And I wonder if that's something that Apple is looking forward into, because in their keynote, they put a big focus on gaming, which we don't usually see. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, just another note about the A17 Pro. Like apparently it has the same performance as the M1, which is in the MacBook I have right now. So that's some crazy power in your hands for sure. And because they upgraded to 8 gigabytes of RAM, it's gonna make the phone honestly even smoother with all the apps running. And I think 8 gigabytes of RAM is a good thing too, because when I'm shooting ProRes with this phone, I keep getting the message that I'm running out of resources, which I assume is RAM. So just having an extra 2 gigs of RAM will definitely allow the system to, you know, be able to actually shoot ProRes footage, because it's really frustrating that I can't do it with this phone. Alright, and finally the cameras, which I think was a little bit underwhelming as well. Like, I really wanted to see like a really big, like almost mirrorless camera-like sensor in the iPhone 15 Pro, but we didn't see that, so that was kind of sad. But iPhones, Apple this year, they actually made some pretty ridiculous claims. They're like, hey, the iPhone 15 Pro is like having 7 lenses in your pocket at once. I know in the marketing material they put, it's like having 7 Pro lenses, but it's kind of misleading, but whatever. But honestly, that's pretty useful, I guess, because instead of like having to pinch the zoom like little increments, you can just tap on like the one or like the main lens button, and then it'll switch between those 3 focal lengths, which is good for us people who like are more into photography and stuff like that. And then new this year is the zoom lenses. So here's where it differentiates between the Pro and the Pro Max. So on the iPhone 15 Pro, you have your 3x telephoto zoom. So I hope they improved that from the 14 Pro. I actually didn't check this, but because the iPhone 14 Pro, like the 3x zoom lens, you can clearly tell that it's worse than the other lenses. So I don't really like to use it that much, as honestly the quality is just not there. So I really hope they improve that on the 15 Pro. And on the 15 Pro Max, this year, you have the new 5x optical zoom, which is great. So it's actually still less than the 10x zoom you get from the Samsung like S23 Ultra. But honestly, I think 5x is still pretty good. It gives you a focal length of 120 millimeters, which I think is actually a lot more useful. And honestly, this year they said they have this new Tetra Prism technology with really good OIS. So especially if it's really stable and it has a big sensor capable of producing some really good quality shots, that should be a lot more useful, especially for photography or especially for video, because I shoot a lot of video. So having a good quality zoom lens would definitely help a lot. And then just touching on some other Pro features you viewers are probably not even caring about is you get 4K 60 ProRes now, which is really good. That was something missing from the 14 Pro that I definitely wish it had. And they use this new like color standard like ACES or something. So the phone is actually capable of shooting log format, which is actually going to be even better. You know, the quality you get from ProRes compared to log footage, like dude, they're actually seriously making like the 15 Pro a viable like video camera choice. And honestly, I'm really debating for my day in life vlogs, like, do I continue to use a big heavy mirrorless camera like my Sony, or like should I honestly just use the 15 Pro? Because especially when you're viewing like videos on the phone, you can barely tell a difference between them, and the iPhone 15 Pro is just much more convenient, it's more discreet, and it's just a lot more convenient to use. But yeah, that's basically it for the 15 Pro and Pro Max. I have no idea how long this video went, but hopefully it didn't go too long and I didn't bore you guys that much. But yeah, honestly, every year they do the same thing. It's just a couple minor upgrades here and there. So honestly, like, you guys should just stop hating on Apple. Just appreciate the new features that they've given out. And yeah, honestly, that's all I have to say. And if you guys have any questions or comments or like what you're gonna buy, definitely leave them down below in the comments, and I'll check over them, reply to any questions and stuff like that. And then if you enjoyed my video, definitely smash the like and subscribe button, because there's gonna be a lot of coverage on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which I'm gonna order. So that's gonna be really cool. And then you guys can also check out my other awesome content on the channel. But yeah, sorry for the rambling. This is like totally unscripted, but honestly, thank you so much guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.